Hey everybody, Shin and Box here, back with another video. So Volibear is doing good. Very good lately. And in fact, for this video, I'm going to be stealing a build that has actually been going around on the Korean servers. Unironically, yes, this is actually, I think, the first time I'm actually going to do a video where it's like Korean X is OP, because actually Volibear is doing quite good right now. In fact, this build was actually doing really good last patch, and now he has been buffed. What were the buffs for Volibear? Okay, the movement speed on his Q went from 8 to 24 to 12 to 28. His E, that's his shield or damage, well, shield and damage, went from cooldown 13 to cooldown 12. Then his ultimate was changed, the cooldown went down, it lost the crowd control immune, is now only unstoppable, but the turret disable went down. So the cooldown on his ultimate went down pretty substantially from 160 at rank 1 to 130. That is almost a normal ult cooldown. In addition to that, actually, this patch note was wrong. And actually, if you look in-game, the movement speed on his Q is actually 12 to 32%, not 12 to 28%. That means that his movement speed towards opposing champions at max rank is actually, as of right now, 64% at rank 5. That makes this dude quite a speedy boy. Last patch, it was a mere 48%. Now it is 64%. That's a lot more movement speed, okay? So because of this, Volibear has been buffed rather substantially. The build that Volibear players have been doing, therefore, then works quite better. What is that build? Okay, well, first we're going to talk about, did these buffs really affect Volibear? Well, as you can see, he has a mere 48% win rate, and he's not doing that good, is what I would say last patch. This patch, he has a 50% win rate, and his pick rate is gone from 2.9%, all the way up to 7.4%. That's like nearly triple the pick rate. That is a considerable amount higher pick rate, okay? So if you actually look at it as a whole, his pick rate has gone from being one of the least picked champions in the entire game. Now he is all the way up here at a 50% pick rate, or say 50% win rate with a third highest pick rate. That's what I meant to say. Okay, anyway. So what is this build? What are we talking about here? Here's my introduction. What is this build? Okay, we're going to try to go through it really quickly. We're not going to spend that much time on it. We're just going to talk about the Volibear build. First, we're going to go over runes. Why is that? Because I think runes help explain this build a little bit more. This is the build in effect, although it can be a little bit different. Grasping and Dying. Because Grasping and Dying is very good for trading in the laning phase. And it gives you maximum HP. Volibear loves maximum HP. He heals missing percent health on his W, 20% missing health on his W, as well as shields. Actually, how much does he shield? Shoot, normally I know these numbers on the top of my head. This time I don't. I think it's like he shields 12% of his health on his E, but he shields 14%. Okay, yes, it is 14%. He shields 14% of his health on his E, and he heals 20% of his missing health on his W. So that is quite powerful when you're stacking HP. So obviously the build, a little bit wrong here actually. The build is going to be Grasping and Dying, Demolish, or second one, Shield Bash is pretty good. Demolish is good, Shield Bash is also good. I don't know which one is doing better. If you want to do more damage to players, I guess go Shield Bash. If you want to do much damage to turrets, go Demolish. It's pretty much even between the two of them, because Shield Bash doesn't really do that much until later in the game anyway. It can kind of do stuff in the laning phase, but getting perfect combos can be difficult, but doable certainly. Second Wind generally outperforms anything else on Volibear due to how his trading patterns work. Generally speaking, Second Wind is always going to be better. Not 100% of the time. There are some champions like, let's say, Jax, where bone plating tends to be quite good. But I would say as a general rule of thumb, Volibear is very melee and doesn't really have the ability to keep bone plating up. Most champions will find a way to poke it off. So I don't find that bone plating tends to do that good on him. Second Wind tends to do good. Then Revitalize. Now, some of you might be thinking Overgrowth, but I actually think Revitalize is better in basically every situation. My last game, I must have made a mistake in taking Overgrowth, which does explain some things. Because Volibear already stacks HP on Grasping and Dying, and he already stacks HP on the double rune here, and he already stacks HP in his items, I find Revitalize tends to allow him, particularly because his W is missing percent health. I find, me personally, that Revitalize tends to do much better, and I think most people would agree with me. Actually, I had 2 wrong runes here. That does explain a lot. Now, for runes here, you do have Taste of Blood and you have Sudden Impact. My personal opinion, neither of these tends to be too impactful on Volibear. Most people do seem to be preferring the Taste of Blood. I think that is generally what most people are preferring. Sudden Impact does actually proc on his Q, but most people find that Taste of Blood tends to be better. During the laning phase, Taste of Blood will proc on your passive. So like if you lightning and hit an enemy for 15 damage, that'll proc the Taste of Blood. Volibear's early lane tends to be a bit weaker, let's say. So the problem is that, you know, you kind of want to keep your health up because you're definitely going to run into issues where you get destroyed. Now, this rune is what drags everything together, Ingenious Hunter. Ingenious Hunter gives you 20 item haste plus 6 item haste per bounty stack. That's really important. For runes, some people thought attack speed was best. No. Ability haste is blatantly the best, in my opinion. Volibear's, like, tank items tend to not have the most ability haste, even though he can kind of go with some of the items that do give ability haste. He really needs ability haste to get to his second W because of how his W works. So I definitely think the ability haste outperforms everything else. Then for runes, you're going to go with health scaling and health scaling because boy oh boy, he scales on health really hard. And this is generally going to be your rune setup. Now, how does Ingenious Hunter fit into this build? Well, Ingenious Hunter fits into this build because, well, let's go show you right here. Ingenious Hunter fits into this build because the new item choices he has makes him an extremely tanky boy. Now, for your rune setup, I think most people prefer Ghost and Teleport. That seems to be his most popular thing. You can do Flash and Teleport into some matchups if you want, but overall, Ghost and Teleport, in my opinion, is going to be overall your best choice. Yeah, so I think Ghost and Teleport will overall be your best choice. Now let's look on to items here. We're just loading in here real quick. So for items, your first item is going to be Doran's Ring. That's because Doran's Ring is really good on Volibear. His mana tends to have some issues here, which I'll go into in a bit. But because of that, Doran's Ring just is going to do better on Volibear. The ability power, because of how much ability ratios Volibear has, he's got a very good AP ratio on his E, 0.8 on the damage, 0.75 on the shield. He's got an AP ratio on the attack speed on his passive. He's got a good 0.5 AP ratio on the damage on his passive. And he's got a decent AP ratio on his ultimate. Not that many abilities with AP ratios, but the ones that do have AP ratios matter. And do remember, his passive will proc on your W's and your Q's once it's stacked up anyway, which tends to make it pretty good. So then let's look into items here. What items are we going to go with first? Well, you're probably going to go with an Ionian Boots of Lucidity from what I've seen. Because that helps you, A, get a little bit of movement speed, B, helps you get more ghosts, but most importantly, gives you more ability haste, so you can get to your second W more often. If you get to 1 W, that's good. If you get to your second W, that tends to be even better. Because remember, your second W does 50% more damage, and importantly, gives you the healing, which early in the game is like, okay, 20 plus 8% missing health, whatever. But later in the game, once you get it to rank 5, it's going to be 80 plus 20% missing health. Particularly in team fights, as everybody tries to, you know, kite you around and not be hit by the second W. It helps if you can swap to a target and W them twice quicker, rather than, you know, sitting there just with your first W. First item is going to be exactly where this Ingenious Hunter rune. I'm going to swap these right here. You can see this Ingenious Hunter rune. This is where it starts to turn on because you're going to go first item. Now, I will say this. I'm just going to do a little addendum here. Do go Tear the Goddess. Not like super early in the game, but at some point it tends to be pretty good. Tear the Goddess is good because you're stacking a lot of ability haste, and Volibear, although it doesn't seem like his mana costs are that high, I assure you, you will very quickly run out of mana, and stacking up Tear the Goddess tends to be good. Now, I do believe that Ingenious Hunter gets you those tier stacks quicker, but I don't really know 100%. I'm gonna be honest with you. Some of the things in this game, I think it does, but don't quote me on that because I have not personally checked it. And if I don't personally check something, I never believe it. Okay, because Riot's coding is very special. Now, if you're fighting a physical opponent, Unending Despair tends to do quite good with Volibear. Now, let me actually explain this one because this seems really dumb. This is like one of those things that seems really dumb until you actually look into it. So if you actually look here, Unending Despair actually gets faster with Ingenious Hunter. You can see with only 1 stack of Ingenious Hunter, it's even coming out every 6 seconds instead of every 7 seconds. Then the more stacks of Ingenious Hunter you have, the faster that Unending Despair will come out. Eventually, once you reach the full stacks of Ingenious Hunter, that'll be 20 plus 30, that'll be 50 item haste, that'll be 33% faster. That'll be an Unending Despair about every 4.5 seconds. While it's not, well, this item isn't absolutely bonkers insane, once you do get Ingenious Hunter on it, it tends to do pretty good. That also gives you a good stack of HP, good stack of armor, it gives you any ability haste at all, and it just generally scales pretty good on Volibear, particularly because he's going to like longer fights. Now, second up, because you have this Tear of the Goddess, you're going to want, still probably not to go with the Winter's Approach yet, but Spear Visage. Now, if you do go with Unending Despair and Spear Visage, now remember, Spear Visage, let me level up my character a little bit here. You can see that Spear Visage affects your E-Shield, it affects your W healing, so it affects your E-Shield, it affects your W healing, it affects your Unending Despair, and then later on, once you do actually finish your items here, it will, of course, affect your Winter's Approach. So Spear Visage gives you bigger E-Shield, it gives you better W healing, it gives you more Winter's Approach shield, it gives you more Unending Despair healing. So, yeah, actually, this tends to work really good. And with this 3-item build, I kid you not, Volibear is such a ludicrous tank machine that he just actually tends to be extraordinarily strong, extraordinarily powerful, and yeah, that's really all I have to say. So you've got the armor, you've got the magic resist, you've got the ability haste here. You can see we actually come out to 58 ability haste with this build. Ability haste on Winter's Approach, ability haste on Unending Despair, ability haste on Spear Visage, ability haste on Invincible City, ability haste on our items, and we actually have 37% ability cooldown reduction. I think that's basically the highest you can get for a tank. Do remember that your W increases the damage based on the HP you have. Because because Winter's Approach, now it will give more health later in the game because it will stack up mana on its own, and then it will, as you level up, you'll continue to get mana as well. So this item will generally mid-game be like 580. Later in the game, it's going to give about 600 HP. So 600 HP here, 400 HP here, 450 HP here. Grasping and Dying, you're probably going to get about 200, 300, 400 HP, depending on how long the game is. Then you're going to have 180 HP on each health per level rune that you took. So that's 360 HP. Your healing and shielding is going to be magnified by Revitalize. Now, I do remind you guys, there's extremely jank. This is going to be really weird to explain, but this is how Riot's coding works. Basically, I need to get out. Is Calculator going to show over my game? Okay, good. Healing and shielding in this game works like this. You get 5% more for your Revitalize. Then you times that amount by 10% because it's actually 0.0. It's 5% times 10% more healing. Then times 25%. So actually, once you have all three of these things and you're below 40% health, you actually get 144% bonus healing. It's really weird, but basically each individual part of healing and shielding increase multiplies off each other. They don't stack additively, they stack multiplicatively. Even Revitalize itself stacks multiplicatively with itself. It's weird, but I've played a lot of Aatrox. I know this trick. It's just a thing. It's just always been here. It's always worked like that. So I assure you, this is actually quite powerful, and once you get on low HP, let me see if I can just show you here. I need to get my character to low HP, and I don't even have that much. I don't even have that much, bonus HP yet. I'm only level 9, but you can already see right here. Boy, oh boy, I can't even seem to get my character low. Yeah, there we go. You can see that this healing gets a little bit good, and you know, once you add in the shield here, you can see that this build starts to go a bit hard. In fact, once you add in the shield from Winter's Approach, it's not stacked up, but you know, you can imagine every single Q is going on Winter's Approach. Winter's Approach has a low cooldown, and yeah, I'm just trying to say there is a lot of healing and a lot of shielding in this build, and once you get that Grasping and Dying stacked up, and by the way, this is why you need mana. Again, as I mentioned earlier, boy, it doesn't feel like it, but yes, you will use all your mana very quickly, and yeah, that's this build. That's, if you want to do this, if this is something that interests you, then I'd recommend this build. You know what? I have to question if I can do this under the double turret, even at level 9. It might be a little bit of a stretch here because I don't have, no, we can't do it under the double turret at level 9. Close though, close though. Okay. So, if that's something that interests you, this is the build for you. What are you going to go next items? Okay, next items, you're going with typical tank builds. To finish off your build at 4th and 5th, what are you going to do? Canic Rookern if you're against a Giga Magic team. If you're up against a lot of auto attackers, you've got Frozen Heart. If you need anti-healing, you've got Thornmail. If you're forced into a split push, you can kind of try to force in a jank like Hullbreaker or maybe even a Black Cleaver now. But do remember, once you're kind of in a tanky build, the best thing you can do is to stay in a tanky build and just continue to be tanky. That's generally probably the best way to do things. So now that you are tanky, you can just go with Jack Show, be even more tanky. Because remember, the more armor and magic resist you have, the more it's worth to have more health. Because for example, if I have 500 health, that 500 health is worth a lot more if I now have Jack Show with the 50 armor, the 50 magic resist, and the 30% bonus resistances. It is much harder to kill 500 health on a tank than 500 health on a squishy champion. Okay? If you're fighting lots of 2-3 crit champions, you can also go with Randuin's Omen. Just generally use your smart here, use your logic. You guys are smart individuals, and you know, generally speaking, if I'm a tank and I need anti-healing, Thornmail. If I need armor and magic resist, Jack Show. If I am being obliterated by mages, there's Canic Rookern. Okay? You guys are smart people. You can figure this out. So that's the new Volibear build. That's what you're doing. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Goodbye, everybody.